Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today we are grabbing a magnifying glass and taking a hard look at one of the most recognizable icons in global sportswear. We're going to deconstruct the shiny, ultra-polished public image of the legendary three-stripe brand. We're digging into their gritty origins, their frankly brilliant psychological marketing, and the hidden business engine that keeps the whole machine running. But we're also going to look at the shadows behind those glossy storefronts. So get ready. This is the corporate unmasking of Adidas.
Okay, let's dive right into this. $1.3 billion. Just let that massive number sink in for a second. That staggering figure? That's the sheer cost of unsold Yeezy stock that Adidas was left holding. Internal documents actually show that Adidas executives knew about Kanye West's anti-Semitic behavior and even his swastika shoe design proposals all the way back in 2013, yet they stayed totally silent. When they finally did decide to cut ties 9 years later, in October 2022, they were left staring at a $1.3 billion mountain of dead inventory.
Which leads us directly to the core mystery we are going to unravel today. You really have to ask yourself, how exactly does a 100-year-old brand make a $1.3 billion mistake? Well, to understand a blunder of that sheer magnitude, we can't just look at today's headlines. We need to go back to their 0 to 1 moment, untangle the psychology they used to sell to us, and expose the hidden financial machinery of the entire company.
To see how far they've fallen in some respects, we have to rapidly see where they started. The founder was Adolf Dassler, though pretty much everyone just called him Adi. In 1920, at just 20 years old, he started making shoes without a factory, without investors. His workshop was literally his mother's wash kitchen in Germany. He used his dad's old cobbler tools and salvaged rubber from old U.S. fuel tanks. By 1924, he and his brother Rudolf teamed up to form the Dassler Brothers Shoe Factory. Their huge breakthrough came at the 1936 Berlin Olympics when Jesse Owens won 4 gold medals wearing their shoes. But behind the scenes, the brothers fought constantly. This intense sibling rivalry led to a really bitter split in 1948, which prompted Rudolf to leave and start a little company called Puma. The very next year, in August of 1949, Adi officially registered his new brand. Section 1. Skeletons in the Closet. 4 corporate controversies. Let's move to and see how this builds our understanding of the modern corporate machine. Because honestly, when a brand reaches this massive size, skeletons are just inevitable. First, as we touched on, from 2013 to 2022, the company maintained a long silence regarding Kanye West's anti-Semitic behavior and those swastika shoe proposals, which ultimately led to that massive financial hit. Second, in 2022, they were hit with a major greenwashing lawsuit. A French environmental group, Zero Waste France, sued them, basically claiming the brand promoted eco-friendly shoes while changing almost nothing in their actual production model. Third, fast forward to June 2024, and the company faced a serious China bribery investigation. An anonymous letter alleged that senior staff in China embezzled millions of euros in kickbacks. And finally, looking a bit further back, poor decisions nearly killed the brand entirely in the 1990s, bringing them right to the brink of bankruptcy. They were only saved by pivoting sportswear into street fashion with their Originals line and that famous Boost technology.
Section 2. The Psychology of Stripes. Marketing Manipulation.
So, how does a brand survive these kinds of massive scandals? It really comes down to how they get into the minds and the wallets of consumers. And it's a bit creepy when you realize the psychological tactics at play here. Take their most recognizable asset, for example. The 3 stripes didn't even start as a logo. When Adi Dassler added them to shoes in 1949, it was purely for functional stability and support. They were literally just structural pieces on the side of the shoe that evolved into a globally recognized icon.
Now, what's really interesting about this next point is how perfectly it shows marketing rewriting history. If you grew up wearing the brand, you have almost certainly heard the famous acronym, "All day, I dream about sports." It's a great myth, but it's completely fake. Marketing teams invented it much later just to build brand culture. The reality is remarkably simple. It's just a combination of the founder's nickname, Adi, plus his last name, Dassler. Adidas. The psychological cues are everywhere if you know where to look. First, take the famous trefoil logo introduced back in 1972. Those 3 leaves aren't just a random retro design. They represent 3 continents, the Americas, Europe, and Africa/Asia, subtly signaling total global dominance. Next, there's the pricing trick. They consistently use premium pricing combined with those .99 endings, and they heavily push consumers toward product bundles. And finally, look at their slogans. It is carefully coded conditioning. Their 2004 slogan, "Impossible is nothing," taps directly into empowerment psychology. But their 2011 slogan, "Adidas is all in," well, in English slang, being all in often translates to being completely exhausted. It taps directly into hustle culture and this intense drive to push yourself to the absolute limit.
Section 3. The business engine. How Adidas actually makes money.
Now that we've seen the history and the psychological marketing, let's put on our Wall Street hats for a minute. 24.8 billion euros. That is their projected main revenue for the year 2025. It just completely reestablishes the sheer, undeniable scale of their current global operations. But, revenue is just the top line. Let's look at what they actually get to keep.
And this brilliantly illustrates the reality of the sneaker business. Look at that gross margin, 51.6%. Think about what that means. More than half the price of every single shoe you buy is pure profit for the company, before operating costs. But once you factor in all those operating and other costs, which sit around 43%, their actual net margin sits at a much tighter, and honestly maybe surprising, 5.4%.
But hey, selling shoes and tracksuits isn't their only game. They actually have 3 major hidden revenue streams that most consumers have no idea about. First off, they own 8.33% of the massive German football club Bayern Munich. Second, they outright own the hugely popular fitness app Runtastic. And third, they rely heavily on massive celebrity collaborations. We're talking powerhouses like Beyoncé, Pharrell, and Bad Bunny. These collabs drive incredible cultural relevance and, of course, massive sales.
And speaking of cultural relevance, their absolute biggest marketing move in history wasn't even a commercial. It happened in 1986. When the legendary hip-hop group Run DMC released the track My Adidas. The brand actually created the phrase, and this single musical moment changed culture forever. It took Adidas shoes from being strictly sports gear that you only wore in the stadium straight to the streets. It completely transformed them into a lifestyle staple, eventually worn by cultural icons from Bob Marley to David Bowie.
So let's weigh their biggest mistake against their massive global footprint. On one hand, the Yeezy fallout didn't just leave them with unsold stock. It ultimately cost them a staggering $500 million in lost profits. But look at the big picture. The brand's survival is practically crucial to the global economy. As of 2024, they have over 62,000 employees worldwide and 15,000 franchise stores. If Adidas just disappeared tomorrow, 62,000 jobs would vanish in an instant. Bayern Munich would lose a major sponsor, and global football would be changed forever. The stakes here are incredibly high.
Heading into the future, their current CEO, Bjorn Gulden, who, by the way, has this really quirky habit of wearing full Adidas tracksuits to official CEO interviews, is steering the ship toward a projected 26.8 billion euros in revenue by 2030. To actually get there, they are banking heavily on future tech for 2026. Specifically, they're testing 3D printed midsoles and AI-driven designs. But they face massive looming threats at the same time. US tariffs and a weak dollar are creating a 400 million euro headwind this year alone. Add to that the rapidly rising competition from huge Asian brands like Anta and Li-Ning, and it's definitely not going to be an easy ride.
So the crucial point is, you don't just have to be a consumer of this massive machine, you can actually profit from it yourself. Adidas runs a highly lucrative affiliate program. If you want to work with them, here is the exact blueprint. Step 1. Focus your content on one of 3 specific angles they absolutely love: sustainability, athlete performance tech, or street culture collaborations. Step 2. Grow a micro-creator audience to just 10K followers. And Step 3. Join their affiliate program. You can earn 7 to 13% commission, which translates to roughly $500 to $2,000 per post.
Well, we've seen the whole shebang today. The humble beginnings in a wash kitchen, the incredible functional designs that morphed into cultural icons, the massive unforced errors, and the billion-dollar financial engine running the whole show. But it leaves us with a pretty provocative question. Will their corporate skeletons, the controversies, the delayed actions, the kickbacks, will they eventually catch up to them and drag them down? Or is the global 3-stripe machine just totally unstoppable at this point? Listen, if this explainer opened your eyes, send me a DM with the word samples on Instagram and I'll send you 3 free product research reports I actually just found this week. And make sure to drop a comment below. Which brand should we unmask next? Nike? Puma? You choose. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.